Story 1. The mirror in the basement. I didn't want the basement. Nobody in my family did. After my grandmother died, we had to clear out her house, room by room. My mom claimed the kitchen, my uncle took the living room, and everyone quietly avoided the stairs leading down to that damp, dark place below. I told them I'd take it. I said it was no big deal, but the truth is, I was lying. The basement had always unsettled me. Even when I was a kid, the air down there felt different, heavier, like it clung to your skin. And every time I went down those creaking steps, I had the sense I wasn't alone, that if I turned my head quickly enough, I'd catch someone watching from the shadows. Still, guilt drove me forward. My grandmother loved this house, and I felt I owed it to her to face the part of it everyone else avoided. So I gripped the brass doorknob, pulled it open, and breathed in the musty scent of dust, mildew, and time gone stale. The light at the top of the stairs flickered when I clicked it on. It cast more shadow than it banished. I took the first step, then the second, the wood groaning beneath my weight. The stairs descended into a pool of dark, and with every step down, the house above felt further and further away. The basement floor was concrete, cracked and speckled with flecks of old paint. Boxes leaned against the walls, their lids bulging from decades of forgotten belongings. A sewing mannequin stood in the corner beneath a sheet, slouched like it was trying to hide. I moved slowly, brushing aside cobwebs, opening boxes, sorting through yellowed newspapers, rusted tools, and cracked picture frames. That's when I saw it. Leaning against the far wall was a mirror. It was taller than me, framed in black iron, twisted into curling shapes that almost looked like vines. The glass itself was coated in a gray film of dust and age. Something about it pulled me closer, even as every instinct begged me to leave it alone. I crouched and wiped a circle clear with my sleeve, and froze. My reflection stared back at me, but it wasn't quite me. My shoulders looked slouched, my face a little emptier, like I'd been drained of something I couldn't name. Worse still, when I raised my hand slowly, the reflection followed, a second too late. A chill went through me. I blinked hard, trying to convince myself it was the light or my imagination. But then, in the corner of the glass, I saw it, a figure, standing at the bottom of the stairs. I spun around, my heart hammering. The steps were empty. The basement was silent. But when I turned back to the mirror, the figure was closer. It stood just behind me now, nothing but a dark silhouette, its head tilted toward my shoulder as if it were leaning in to whisper. I felt the air shift by my ear, the faintest brush of breath that was too cold, too wrong to belong to anyone living. Panic surged through me. I gripped the mirror's iron frame, desperate to turn it to the wall. The metal was ice cold under my hands, and far heavier than it looked. I dragged it an inch, the bottom scraping against the concrete with a high-pitched squeal. And then, in that split-second angle, I saw her face. Not the shadow anymore, but a woman. Stern features, pale, hollow eyes. Eyes I recognized from an old black and white photo hanging upstairs on the wall. My grandmother's sister, the one who had died in this very house decades before I was born. In the photograph, her gaze was stiff, frozen in time. But in the mirror, those eyes were alive, watching me. The weight shifted in my hands, and the mirror slipped. It crashed against the floor and shattered. The sound echoed through the basement like a scream. Shards of glass sprayed across the floor, catching the dim light. I stumbled back, my chest heaving, my cut palm stinging where the glass had bitten me. At first, all I saw was my reflection broken into pieces, 100 tiny versions of myself scattered across the ground. But then I noticed something else. The basement in those reflections wasn't the same. In one shard, I saw the dark figure crouched beside me. In another, it lingered at the foot of the stairs. In yet another, it loomed directly behind me, its hand raised, reaching. Each reflection showed a different moment, like fractured timelines, all happening at once. My breath caught. My eyes locked on the largest shard, slick with a droplet of my blood. My reflection leaned closer, and for a split second, I thought I saw it mouth something, my name. And then it smiled. I stumbled back so fast I nearly fell. The sheet slipped from the mannequin in the corner, collapsing into a heap at its feet. For a terrible instant, I thought it had moved, that it had been watching too. The air pressed in around me, heavy and suffocating. I bolted for the stairs, taking them two at a time. My heart pounded as I slammed the basement door shut and leaned against it, my chest rising and falling like I'd just outrun something. From the kitchen, my mother called. "You all right down there?" "Yeah," I lied, forcing the word through my dry throat. "Just dusty." That night, I dreamed I was back in the basement, picking up the shards of the mirror one by one. Each piece whispered as I touched it, a faint hiss that grew clearer with every fragment. By the time I fitted the last piece into place, the face staring back wasn't mine anymore. Since that day, I don't trust mirrors. Sometimes I catch glimpses and I, blinking too late, a posture that doesn't match mine, a smile I never made. And sometimes, in the corner of the glass, I see her still, watching, waiting for me to stare too long. Story 2. Curtains drawn back. I was 10 years old the night I learned to fear windows. It didn't start with a sound. It didn't start with a dream. It started with a feeling. I woke up suddenly, as if something had touched me, and the air in my room felt wrong, heavier, too still, like the whole house was holding its breath. At first, I didn't understand why I felt so uneasy. Then I realized my curtains were open. That might not sound like much, but to me, it was everything. I always closed my curtains before bed, always. My mom even had a little rhyme for me. Shut out the night, don't invite it inside. She said it with a smile, but I always listened. That night, though, the curtains were drawn wide, pulled back, as if someone had wanted me to see what was waiting beyond the glass. Moonlight spilled into my room, silver and sharp, outlining the edges of my bed and my toys scattered on the floor. Outside, the yard was covered in frost that glittered like broken glass, and the branches of the trees swayed, scratching shadows across the ground. I told myself I must have forgotten. Maybe I hadn't closed them properly. Maybe I'd sleepwalked. I tried to believe anything that made sense. But then I saw the mirror. It stood across the room on my dresser, angled just enough to catch the reflection of the window behind me. And in that reflection, my heart nearly stopped, because I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the glass, I saw a figure. It was out in the yard, framed in the window's glow. At first, it looked like just a shadow among shadows. But it was too solid, too deliberate. I froze, barely daring to blink. In the mirror, the figure stood tall and thin, unnaturally thin, with limbs that seemed just a little too long. Its head was tilted to one side, as though studying me with a kind of patient curiosity. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My voice was gone, trapped somewhere deep inside me. So I did the only thing I could. I turned toward the window. Nothing. Just the empty yard, silver with frost, the trees, the shadows, the night. I spun back to the mirror. The figure was closer, a few feet closer. My stomach knotted. My fingers dug into the blanket. I could feel my pulse hammering through my entire body. I knew I had to move, had to get up, but I couldn't. I just sat there, staring into the mirror, watching as it inched forward, not walking but gliding across the yard like smoke on the wind. In the mirror, its arm rose, not like a human arm, but longer, bent strangely at the joint. It pressed something its hand, its claw, against the glass. Not the window glass, but the mirrors. As though it wasn't outside at all, but inside that reflection. Reaching through it toward me, I finally found my voice. It was small, broken, more of a whimper than a scream. But even that was too much, because when the sound escaped my lips, the figure tilted its head the other way, listening, and then it smiled. I couldn't breathe. My legs finally moved, kicking free from the blanket. I ran. I didn't look back at the mirror, didn't look back at the window. I bolted into the hall, heart thundering in my chest. And that's when I heard it, the curtains slamming shut behind me. I stood in the hallway, trembling, listening. The silence was suffocating. I didn't go back in until morning, and when I did, the curtains were closed, tight, just the way I always left them. No one believed me when I told them. My mom said it was a nightmare. My uncle said kids scare themselves with shadows. But I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. To this day, I never sleep with the curtains open. Not because I'm afraid of the dark, but because I'm afraid of what's waiting in it, watching, hoping I'll forget to close them again. Story 3. Under the bed. I used to think the noises at night were just the house settling. Everyone says that when they hear something strange. Houses creak, pipes shift, wood bends. But the night I woke at 3 in the morning to a sound beneath my bed, I knew it wasn't the house. It was scratching, soft, careful, like nails dragging across wood. At first I told myself it was a dream, that if I stayed still long enough, it would stop. But it didn't. It grew louder, slower, more deliberate. I lay there in the dark, frozen, staring at the ceiling, my ears straining with every second that passed. And then, without meaning to, I leaned over the side of the bed and looked, and I saw eyes, wide, white, staring straight at me. For a moment, the world stopped. My breath caught. My mind screamed at me to pull back, to hide under the covers, to do anything but keep looking. But I couldn't. Those eyes had me. They were too still, too patient. We stared at each other for what felt like forever. And then, it moved. A hand slid forward, pale fingers curling against the floorboards. Another hand followed. It dragged itself toward me, inch by inch, body unfolding unnaturally from the shadows. I scrambled back, pressing against the wall, my chest heaving. And then, it was gone. Just like that. The space beneath the bed was empty again. I barely slept the rest of the night. In the morning, I convinced myself it had been a hallucination, a dream bleeding into reality. But a week later, it happened again. And this time, I wasn't the only one who knew. I confronted my roommate. Half joking, half terrified, I asked him if he'd ever come into my room at night. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His voice was low, almost ashamed when he answered. "Yes," he said. "Sometimes." I thought he was kidding, so I pressed him, but he wasn't. He admitted he'd been sneaking in for weeks, that he liked to lie under my bed, that he liked to listen to me breathe while I slept. I felt sick. My skin crawled. I wanted to scream, to throw him out right then and there. But the way he said it, calm, like it was the most natural thing in the world, it paralyzed me. I moved out a few days later. I haven't spoken to him since. But sometimes, when I wake in the dark, I swear I can hear it again. That soft, deliberate scratching beneath me. And I wonder if leaving was enough. Because what if it wasn't him at all?